Blizzard especially has a very, very long history in esports. It's pretty much the origin of esports. Certainly StarCraft was the first professionally produced esports game out there. So I think, it's cool to be now here at Activision Blizzard, to be working with the teams that really started it. So very few people in esports have been around longer than me, but definitely the Blizzard team has. Inside of Activision Blizzard, nearly every game, every development studio are really heavily focused on esports as a core part of the game development process. And I think that's definitely been the case with Blizzard for a couple of their games for a while, but now it's for everything. And same thing with Activision. They were, Activision's titles were really not geared towards esports until the past few years, and now there's a lot of creative innovation and effort being put toward esports features, and just in the way you think about game development. Really, those teams they have esports at the front of mind while they're building games. We are not necessarily only going to be working with Activision Blizzard titles over time. So I think we take a pretty wide view of the space, and our mandate is to build a media business. So whatever it's going to take to get there, I think, is on the table. I think it looks just like traditional sports in a lot of ways. If you look at the leagues like the NFL or the NBA, there's certainly sponsorship, there's broadcast rights fees, there's advertising on their own networks. And then for the ESPNs and the broadcasters, it's a mix of subscriptions and advertising revenue. One of the interesting things to me is kind of the pairing of me as like the esports guy with Steve, who's the traditional sports guy. A lot of what we are talking about as we're having strategy sessions and formulating our business plan is how do we take the best elements of both, combine them together to make something much more powerful. I think in the traditional sports world, if you are the NFL or ESPN, you don't actually have a direct relationship with your viewer or your customer at the end of the day. There's very little direct interaction. It's all through some other thing. In our case, we have over 70 million monthly active users across all of our games who are directly interacting with us. And so it gives us a lot of insight into kind of what makes our players tick. And we get direct and immediate feedback really just by watching the data, right? So you can kind of, where things are. And then the other thing is, 70 million monthly active players is already a big media business. And so, that's pretty close to what ESPN's total coverage is in the US. So I think, we've got access to lots of people and we have a lot of direct feedback. So I think we'll be quicker to innovate. We'll focus on direct feedback and doing everything that we can to create the best fan experience we can across every platform. I think the important thing is the core esports fan is somebody that's very difficult to reach through traditional media. They're generally consuming lots of video content, but mostly through mobile or the internet. And their engagement is very, very high, both playing and watching esports games. So I think, as we start to develop Activision Blizzard media networks, part of what we'll be doing is coming up with innovative ways to use that engagement as an advertising channel that's not disruptive to the experience. Kind of keeping what Activision Blizzard's done very well for a long time is keeping the player first and foremost in our mind. How do we also create value-added advertising capability? So I think it's important. It's going to be more and more difficult to reach this audience in other channels. So I think as an advertiser, if you're interested in highly engaged young men who are passionate fans about something, esports is a great way to reach them.